Master, to Ram and the other devotees. Devotees like Rakhal, Narendra and Bhavanath may be called Nitya Siddha. So Rakhal is Swami Brahmananda and Narendra is Vivekananda. And Bhavanath was another young man who used to visit, later became a spiritual teacher. He was not in our order, but he was of a slightly different nature, but also very advanced spiritually. And Sri Ramakrishna says, they may be called Nitya Siddha. Literally it means ever perfected. Their spiritual consciousness has been awake since their very birth. They assume human bodies only to impart spiritual illumination to others. There is another class of devotees known as Kripa Siddha, that is to say, those on whom the grace of God descends all of a sudden and who at once attain His vision and knowledge. Such people may be likened to a room that has been dark 1,000 years, which, when a lamp is brought into it, becomes light immediately, not little by little. Those who lead a householder's life should practice spiritual discipline. They should pray eagerly to God in solitude. To Mr. Chaudhary, God cannot be realized through scholarship. Who indeed can understand the spirit of things of the spirit through reason? No, all should strive for devotion to the lotus feet of God. Infinite are the glories of God. How little can you fathom them? Can you ever find out the meaning of God's ways? Bhishma was none other than one of the 8 Vasus, but even he shed tears on his bed of arrows. He said, "How astonishing! God Himself is the companion of the Pandava brothers, and still there is no end to their troubles and sorrows. Who can ever understand the ways of God?" A man thinks, "I have practiced a little prayer and austerity, so I have gained a victory over others." But victory and defeat lie with God. I have seen a prostitute dying in the Ganges and retaining consciousness to the end. There's a footnote. Dying in the Ganges while retaining full consciousness is considered by the Hindus as an act of great spiritual merit and the result of pious living. That used to be done earlier. In the Ganges means not that they are drowned. The dying person would be taken to the bank of the river, and their feet or their hands would touch the Ganga and while they passed away. So it's sort of outmoded now. But that's what he's referring to. Mr. Chaudhary, how can one see God? Master, not with these eyes. God gives one divine eyes, and only then can one behold Him. God gave Arjuna divine eyes so that he might see His universal form. Another footnote, an allusion to the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Your philosophy is mere speculation. It only reasons. God cannot be realized that way. God cannot remain unmoved if you have raga bhakti, that is love of God with passionate attachment to Him. Do you know how fond God is of His devotees' love? It is like the cow's fondness for fodder mixed with oil cake. The cow gobbles it down greedily. Raga bhakti is pure love of God, a love that seeks God alone and not any worldly end. Prahlada had it. Suppose you go to a wealthy man every day, but you seek no favor of him. You simply love to see him. If he wants to show you favor, you say, "No, sir, I don't need anything. I came just to see you." Such is love of God for its own sake. You simply love God and don't want anything from Him in return. Saying this, the Master sang, "Though I am never loath to grant salvation, I hesitate indeed to grant pure love. Whoever wins pure love surpasses all. He is adored by men. He triumphs over the 3 worlds." There's a footnote. The song represents Sri Krishna's words. It's in Bengali. Mukti dite kator noi, bhakti dite kator hoi. I do not hesitate to give enlightenment, liberation. If you want, people say, "No, it's very difficult." No, it's not difficult. God can give, and many do get it. But pure love, bhakti, it's even more rare. It's really precious. He continued, the gist of the whole thing is one must develop passionate yearning for God and practice discrimination and renunciation. Mr. Chaudhary, sir, is it not possible to have the vision of God without the help of a guru? Master, Satchidananda himself is the guru. At the end of Shava Sadhana, just when the vision of the Ishta is about to take place, the guru appears before the aspirant and says to him, behold, this is your Ishta. Saying this, the guru merges in the Ishta. He who is the guru is also the Ishta. The guru is the thread that leads to God. Women perform a ritualistic worship known as Anantavrata, the object being the infinite, but actually the deity is worshipped is Vishnu. In him are the infinite forms of God. To Ram and other devotees, if you ask me which form of God you should meditate upon, I should say, fix your attention on the form which appeals to you most, but know for certain that all forms are the forms of one God alone. Never harbor malice towards anyone. Shiva, Kali and Hari are but different forms of that one. He is blessed indeed who has known all as one. Again a song. Outwardly he appears as Shiva's devotee. It's not a song, it's actually a saying. Outwardly he appears as Shiva's devotee, but in his heart he worships Kali, the blissful mother, and with his tongue he chants aloud Lord Hari's name. So Shaivism, Shaktaism and Vaishnavism all together. The body does not endure without a trace of lust, anger and the like. You should try to reduce them to a minimum. Looking at Kedar, the master said, he is very nice. He accepts both the absolute and the relative. He believes in Brahman, but he also accepts the gods and divine incarnations in human form. In Kedar's opinion, Sri Ramakrishna was such an incarnation. Looking at Nitya Gopal, the master said to the devotees, he is in a lofty mood. To Nitya Gopal, don't go there too often. You may go once in a while. She may be a devotee, but she is a woman too. Therefore I warn you. The sannyasi must observe a very strict discipline. He must not look even at the picture of a woman. But this rule doesn't apply to householders. An aspirant should not associate with a woman. He's talking to men, remember. Even though she is very much devoted to God. A sannyasi, even though he may have subdued his passions, should follow this discipline to set an example to householders. Worldly people learn renunciation by seeing the complete renunciation of a monk. Otherwise, they sink more and more. A sannyasi is a world teacher. So this concludes the teaching. So now we'll go through it a little more in detail. So first he says to Ram, so remember who's there? Some close devotees, some of whom are destined to become monks, and a visitor, Mr. Chaudhary, who's sort of older than the rest of them. He is a responsible man, very learned, and he's recently suffered a great bereavement. His wife passed, and so he has been coming to Sri Ramakrishna for peace of mind. So keep this in your mind when listen to what he is saying.
Who is Harish?
Harish was another young man who used to come to Sri Ramakrishna. Yeah. But he didn't become a monk later on. Master, to Ram and other devotees. Devotees like Rakhal, Narendra and Bhavanath may be called Nitya Siddha. Their spiritual consciousness has been awake since their very birth. They assume human bodies only to impart spiritual illumination to others. So this is one class of people, very rare. They come once in a while. They are very spiritual, very quick to attain enlightenment even from the childhood. They often become examples and world teachers. Suddenly they... So this class, Sri Ramakrishna says, it's not that they actually attained something in this life. They already had that perfection and they come as teachers. So for Sri Ramakrishna, everything happens by the will of God. So by the will of God, such people come once in a while and they teach others. And they assume human bodies only to impart spiritual illumination to others. So even after becoming fully enlightened, one may be reborn, but no longer under the compulsion of one's past karma, by the wish of God for the help to help others. There is another class of devotees, Kripa Siddha. Kripa means grace. So we often ask about grace, the role of grace in Advaita, for example, in non-dualism. One Swami explained it nicely. He said, Swami Vishuddhananda, he was a president of our order. So one of the devotees kept on pestering him, Kripa, Kripa Maharaj, grace, grace, I crave your grace. So the Swami said to him, don't you know what Kripa is? Kri and Pa, if you split it. Now in Bengali and in many Indian languages, Sanskrit also. So Kri means to do and Pa means to get. So yes, you will get, but first you must do. Doing is basically, do means spiritual practice. Prayer, meditation, good works, self-control, ethical life, Vedantic inquiry, all of that. This, at the very least, this is a sign that you want it. Ask and you shall receive. Knock and the door shall be opened. So unless you knock, unless I really want it, why should God give anything? There is another class of devotees, Kripa Siddha, on whom the grace of God descends all of a sudden. So it could be the grace of God, it could be through the Guru. Often it's through the Guru, the grace of the Guru. In Kashmiri Shaivism, there is the doctrine of Shakti path. So the path to direct realization can be a powerful Shakti path, that means giving of a transmission of a spiritual power. So that's a grace. And suddenly they attain to vision and knowledge, become enlightened. A room that has been dark 1,000 years, flash of light and blazes forth with light. So they make a breakthrough suddenly. They may be spiritual seekers, or they might not be spiritual seekers. You hear of it once in a while. I wouldn't classify Raman Maharshi in this group. I would classify Raman Maharshi in the earlier group, who are ever perfected, because he attained immediately. There are others. I was reading The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle. So he didn't know spiritual practice before, and he went through a kind of spiritual crisis, but he woke up one day and enlightened. And we go, that's nice. I wish that would happen to us. Suddenly it comes to us. Suddenly by the grace of God. It can happen, but you can't sit around waiting for it to happen. That's why in Kashmiri Shaivism they speak of 4 broad paths, gradations. So the highest one is called Anupai, no path. It's not a path. You become enlightened. How? Don't ask how. Just suddenly, spontaneously awaken. How many of that? Very, very few. Very, very few. But it happens. You cannot deny that it happens. So that's one. But you cannot sit around waiting for that to happen. So the next gradation, they call it the Shambhava Upai. The Shambhava Upai is the way of Shiva. It's very much like Advaita Vedanta. A direct realization, the teaching, and you awaken to your real nature. It's pointed out. Your real nature is pointed out and you awaken to it. If that doesn't work, then there is a more detailed method, Shakta Upai, the way of the Shakti, of the Divine Mother, of divine power, where meditation, mantra, all these are introduced. And if that doesn't work, there is the Anva Upai. Anu means the atom, that's us. Where more detailed practices, body-based practices, rituals, all of that is introduced. And each of them is more complex than the early one. No path is the simplest of all. What could be more simple? But it's the rarest of all. Then the Shambhava Upai is also simple, direct pointing out of the truth. Then it becomes more complicated. The entire science of mantras and meditation is introduced. Shakta Upai, the way of Shakti. And then it becomes even more complex. The most complex is the Anva Upai, because more complications require more complicated treatment. But the point here is it makes provision for people who become spontaneously enlightened. And spontaneously is not random. Here Sri Ramakrishna says it is the grace of God. It's the grace of God, grace of Guru. So what's the point of spiritual practice? Sri Ramakrishna next says, those who lead a householder's life should practice spiritual discipline. They should pray eagerly to God in solitude. That's asking. Don't think that you will attain to enlightenment because of those practices, but those practices signal God that this person is in the game. He wants God realization. Then God takes over. But this is a speculative philosophy. Someone very learned like Mr. Chaudhary, he is reading lots of books by philosophers and also to find an answer to his questions. To Mr. Chaudhary, God cannot be realized through scholarship. You can't argue your way to God. Who indeed can even understand the things of the Spirit through reason? No, all should strive for devotion to the lotus feet of God. Infinite are the glories of God. How little can you fathom them? Can we ever find out the meaning of God's ways? And then he explains. This is all of it is a build-up to this. He knows the sorrow that is in Mr. Chaudhary's heart because he's lost his wife recently. So that's why he has come to Sri Ramakrishna bereaved. Then he points out, Sri Ramakrishna, this is the next part. Bhishma, those who know the story of the Mahabharata, this great warrior, he was the senior most among the warriors in that battle. And finally he died a most painful death, I would say. He had to lay on a bed of arrows and see it through. And the particular time came when he gave up the body. He's lying there and weeping. So Arjuna asks Krishna, why is he weeping? He's such a great warrior. It's so sad to see him weeping. Then Krishna says, ask him. When upon being asked, he says, I do not weep for myself. I weep for you Pandava brothers, the heroes of the story, the 5 brothers, the Pandava brothers, among whom Arjuna was the third. And he is the one to whom the Gita was taught. So the 5 Pandava brothers, who are the heroes of this whole story. And with them, they have the blessings of Krishna, who is an incarnation of God. So Krishna is with them all the time. And yet, how much they suffer. All throughout the Mahabharata is mostly a record of their sufferings and their trials and tribulations and travails. This is an interesting thing. We often have this idea. See, he has got Mr. Chaudhary in mind. We often have this idea, either quite openly or covertly, somewhere in our hearts. If I take refuge in God, if I am spiritual, if I'm prayerful and I believe in God, then I'll be protected from the miseries of life. True or not? Well, the answer is more complex than that. In one sense, yes, but in another sense, no. You will not change what is going to happen to you in life. What goes on in life will go on. Spiritual development, that means deep faith and devotion, love of God, protects you from the suffering that is within. Meditation, not constantly dwelling on what's happening in my life and what's happening around me, but dwelling on God all the time, protects you from that suffering. Knowledge, jnana, that I am witness consciousness. I am not affected by what happens to the body, mind. I am ever the witness, ever perfect, ever liberated. That clarity, that protects you from that suffering. Karma yoga, selfless action, that way you are more concerned about the welfare of others than one's own little individual personal welfare. That protects you from suffering. But how does it protect you from suffering? Will it remove old age, disease, death, the nasty behavior of others, financial troubles? Will it remove? No, it won't. Then how does it protect you? This I've mentioned a number of times. Very precisely, the Buddha points this out. A monk went to the Buddha, and it's actually not a apocryphal, it's not some later story. And there are lots of social media stories are there. Anything wise and you attribute it to the Buddha. No, it's actually in the original Pali scriptures, this story. So it's very beautiful and very elegant. The monk goes and asks the Buddha, I have a question. What's the question? Well, you said that suffering is old age, disease, death. These are the biggies, old age, disease, these are the biggies. But there are lots of suffering. There's financial problems, there is social problems, there is parking problems, whatnot. Forest fire, smoke problem, haze out there. So all sorts of, from minor irritations to major aggravations, all sorts of problems. There's war and so on. But old age, disease, death. Our senior most member, Bill Conrad, so he's 98, going on 99 now. So he once in a while he tells me, old age is not for sissies, Swami. So these are the big ones: disease and chronic disease, chronic pain, and then finally death. The psychologist R.D. Laing, he said, human beings are afraid of three things. First and most pervasive, even if we don't admit it, is a fear of death. We push it far into our subconscious. Most people say, I don't think about death. You don't, but you are afraid. And if you don't think about death, you're more afraid than others. That's pride for you. If you say, I don't have a problem, I am perfectly normal, then you're really abnormal then. There's something seriously wrong with you. That's sort of a Freudian approach there. So what is it that you're suppressing? So fear of death. R.D. Laing said fear of death. That's one thing of three things that human beings are afraid of. First is fear of death. Second one is other people. We're afraid of other people. Third, we're afraid of our own minds. Any mature person will have these three fears. So old age, disease, death. And then you, O Buddha, you said there is a way out of this, and you have found the way. You have become enlightened and you have found a way beyond suffering, beyond this suffering. The Buddha said, yes, what is the question? Well, my question is, but you are becoming old and you get disease once in a while. And unfortunately, I guess you're going to die one day. He lived up to 80, but he did die. And those of us we are all following you. We are all following you. We too, some of us have died. We are all getting old. We all get sick. So how did your teaching take us, or even you? At least you are enlightened. How did it take us beyond suffering? You see the logic? Suffering, what is suffering? The goal is to go beyond suffering. What is suffering? Old age, disease, death. And you get enlightenment. You have attained bodhi, nirvana, and gone beyond suffering. But you're still getting old. You're still getting sick. And one day you will die. The Buddha's answer was that, listen, O monk, the nature of suffering is like a man hit by two arrows. One arrow is what the world throws at you. Old age, disease, death, the behavior of others, financial problems, ups and downs of Wall Street, war, forest fires. All of this is what the world throws at you. That's the first arrow. The second arrow is your reaction to all of this. And the second arrow is what causes the real pain. Yeah. I often say, the doctors know this very well. The first arrow, disease, some kind of sickness, accident, problem. And doctors have seen all the time that how two patients react very differently. One with a pretty serious condition might be calm and dignified. Another with a minor little problem might completely fall apart. So it's the second arrow, our reaction to the situations in life, which really cause suffering to us. And then the Buddha goes on to say that what I am teaching you will remove the suffering caused by the second arrow. Your whole response to life will change. He just said it will remove the suffering caused by the second arrow. About the first, I cannot do anything. So old age, disease, death will keep happening. So that's what Sri Ramakrishna is trying to point out with the story of Bhishma. That Bhishma says, I weep, thinking that God himself is with the Pandavas. And those who know the story of Mahabharata, they know. It's a story of woe and evil and mistreatment and deprivation and so many problems, huge problems. And God was with the ones who suffered most. So Bhishma says, I am astonished. I don't know how to explain this. And this is exactly what was going to happen to Narendranath very soon. I was just thinking. Think about it this way. Narendranath, who became Vivekananda, at the time when he had become a disciple, he had just started coming, and then he had already started learning from Ramakrishna. And when he was pretty advanced and having extraordinary mystical experiences and doing an intense spiritual practice, who could be more with God than Narendranath, the young seeker of God, the perfect student? Exactly at that time was most intense suffering in the worldly sense. His father died. He was the son of a rich family. He didn't know what to do. Suddenly they were put in dire straits, and they found that they had no money, and in fact they were in debt, and relatives pounced on the helpless family and tried to even throw them out of their house and occupy something. So his widowed mother and his younger brothers and sisters who were just kids by that time. And he was the eldest son of the house. They thought it's his responsibility. And he went from door to door looking for a job. He couldn't get a job. Helpless. He goes to Sri Ramakrishna, and we know the story. But my point is, look, who is more spiritual than Narendranath at that point? And in a worldly sense, he's suffering a lot. So the two can go together. We have this subtle thing that if I'm spiritual, religious, well, you can be spiritual or religious, you can't be anywhere close to Narendranath. And look how he suffered. Now, does that mean then we won't be religious or spiritual? Well, then you are increasing the quantum of suffering. You get 2 arrows then. At least the second arrow will be safe from. Your spiritual practice will protect you from the second arrow. Won't it at all change what will happen to me in the world? That also it says it will change. There is a secret to it though. The secret is this, that what happens in the world is Brahman, pure consciousness, existence consciousness place, is completely indifferent. Whether you are miserable, suffering in terrible dire straits, poverty stricken, terrible condition, or you are rich and happy and famous and people like you, all of that is exactly equal to Brahman. From Brahman's perspective, this is all name and form, appearance. That's from Shiva's perspective. But Shakti is the divine mother. So the mother is compassionate. The mother understands our weaknesses, our foibles, and is endlessly forgiving. Father is strict. So the mother said, what spiritual practice does, Ma Sharda said, it reduces the impact of your karma. If you catch hold of God, actually even the first arrow will be blunted. So in her own words, where you would have had a leg cut off, you will get a pinprick. So that's a big saving for us. So we calculate in that way, it's a big saving for us. And we know the story of how Vivekananda goes to Sri Ramakrishna, and he is desperate. And he doesn't know where to turn to. He's too proud to ask for help from others. Even his own friends, rich friends, his mother, there's sometimes no food in the house and not enough food. And as the eldest son, he was too proud to tell his mother that he was hungry. He would say, I have been invited by a friend of mine for a party or something like that, so I don't need to eat today. But he would go hungry the whole day so that his brothers and sisters could eat. He wouldn't tell his friends. Sometimes, he was always the leader of the group and singing songs and all of that. And friends would sometimes notice, why do you look so pale? Why do you look so unhappy? In fact, the only one who knew this and did something to help was the writer of this book, Master Maharshi. And because being very quiet and self-effacing in nature, he would anonymously send money to their house. It's only much later that people found out. But anyway, dire straits. Now, there's a point to this story. What happens next? He goes to Sri Ramakrishna and tells him that, this is getting very difficult. Can you help me? Can you tell the mother, Kali? Can you tell your mother? And Sri Ramakrishna says, it's Tuesday, it's a good day. Tuesdays and Saturdays are supposed to be the days of Divine Mother. In Dakshineshwar Kali temple, this is the temple, and today is the evening. It's a very good time to pray to the mother. Why don't you go and ask her? He said, she won't listen to me. She listens to, he said, she listens to you. You go and ask her. And then Sri Ramakrishna said, no, you go ahead. You go and ask. And there he said something which people overlook. He said it in Bengali, just a little comment and observation, but which is very important for the rest of us ordinary people. He said, "Tui amar maa ke manish na to tai tora to dukkha." You don't accept the Divine Mother. That's why you suffered so. Now, that gets lost in the drama of the whole story, but it's a clue for all of us. It's a subtle but powerful instruction for all of us. Because yes, we want meditation and knowledge and devotion, all the spiritual practices which will remove the suffering of the second arrow. Great, that's straightforward, like what the Buddha said. But we also want to negotiate a little about the first arrow. What life is throwing at us, it can be too much and too overwhelming. Can I get a concession, or can things be put off a little more, a presidential pardon for the student loans or something like that? I know I took that money, but can I not pay it back? So our karmic loans, can I be let off the hook once in a while? I know I used to do that. I had this Sanskrit teacher when I was a little kid. He would come and teach, and he'd get loads of homework. To be fair, it was not loads, I was just lazy, but it was just homework and Sanskrit grammar. I mean, come on, a little kid. So I wouldn't do it. And the day he would come to teach me at home, I would desperately go. We had a little shrine and go and pray that, let him not come today. I promise I'll do the homework next time. He would come on an old creaky bicycle, and it would have a particular screech. And I would be praying, and God was very heartless. I would be praying, little boy, and there would be screech, and he is here. So we would want it once in a while, the teacher not to come. So Sri Ramakrishna says, it is possible to some extent that the mother will help you. And then we know the rest of the story, of course, we know. Then Vivekananda Narendranath went to the temple of Kali. Then he came back and he said he was so overwhelmed. There was a living presence of the deity. And Sri Ramakrishna said, then what happened? He said, I asked for devotion, I asked for knowledge, I asked for dispassion. Oh, that's all right, but did you ask for money? He said, no, I couldn't. Oh, what a fool you are. Go back, there's yet time. Go back and ask for money. So he goes back a second time. And the same thing, I asked for devotion and knowledge and enlightenment. And he's almost intoxicated. It's like coming face to face with the mother of the universe. And Sri Ramakrishna scolds him again. Oh, what a fool you are. You should ask for money. Go back and ask this yet time. Third time also the same thing happens. And then Narendranath realizes, this is your play. You are doing this. Sri Ramakrishna was testing him. And he was very glad that he didn't ask for anything worldly. Then Sri Ramakrishna blessed him. He said, all right, I bless you that your family will not lack plain food and clothing. He didn't say that they're going to be Wall Street multimillionaires, billionaires. No. He just said they will not lack plain food and clothing. That much was true. They still had a hard time of it over the years, but they were provided for. This gentleman, he has faith in God. He is also overtly intellectual. So Sri Ramakrishna first says, you can't argue your way to God. You can't read your way to God. And also, he points out, just because you are spiritual, just because you are a good person, does not mean you will be spared suffering. Because he has lost his wife. He is very unhappy. So he points that out. People suffer terribly, and then they say, I've lost faith in God. Intensely I believe in God. I used to, but now I don't believe in God anymore. I lost faith in God. Well, the answer to that is, you expected something else of God other than God. And the second thing is, don't worry, you haven't lost faith in God. Anybody who intensely believed in God might be upset with God, but that faith will not go away. It will come back again, and it will come back in a purer and higher form. There are these two approaches to religion, the lower and the higher. One is God for my life. I have my life, and there are certain things which are conveniences in my life. a washing machine is a convenience, a Wi-Fi is a convenience. Like that, God is also a convenience in my life. God will make my life better. Most people are there, when you go to the temples and churches, most people who turn up there are not turning up for enlightenment and liberation and salvation. No. That's something good to have later on. But right now, I want God to help me with my medical bills, with my relationship problems, with my health problems, so on and so forth. So I want God to help me. God for my life. But the higher religion, spirituality, which is what we are all here for, is my life for God. My goal is God realization. That's what Sri Ramakrishna is pointing at. He will say later on, the higher love of God is not for any worldly end. You may get the worldly end, don't worry about that. That also you will be protected. You will be taken care of. At the very least, plain food and clothing, like Sri Ramakrishna said. So you need not worry about that. But our love of God should be for God only, for God realization. And that's what God loves most. He'll give the example of the rich man, a person who turns up at the door of the rich man, and the rich man finally says, what do you want? Nothing. It's like you. Similarly, the rich man is God. And I keep thinking about God. I really don't want anything. But I love God. So that devotion without any personal motive behind it. You may ask for the welfare of others. Generally, don't ask for specific prayers. Let that person be cured, or let that person, not for yourself. Some people ask, can I ask for others? You can. See, often parents, they are helpless. They are so, helplessly concerned about their children's welfare. So it's cruel to tell them not to pray for the children's welfare. So they will pray for the children's welfare. That's good. Nothing wrong in it. And in general, add the welfare of all beings. Always let all good come to all beings. That's what I want. Now you see. A man thinks, I have practiced a little prayer and austerity, so I've gained a victory over others. I've gone ahead of others. No. In spiritual life, you don't go ahead of others by your own efforts. It's God's grace. And there's no question of going ahead of others. It's not a race in that sense. I have once on a train, there was this married couple. They kept on quarreling all throughout. But they were both interested in spiritual life. Then the wife went to sleep, and the husband was telling me with a little wistfulness, she's far ahead of me. I don't know if she was far ahead of him, but she had certainly convinced him that she was far ahead of him. And often people turn it into a race. Often married people do that. They turn it into a race or competition. I'm better than you in some way or the other. No, don't do that. And better than you, there is nobody knows anything. We have often seen people who seem to be really spiritual, really, they slip. The people who seem to be most ordinary, they shoot ahead in spiritual life. They rise so high, they become so holy, such good people. Difficult. I've seen this again and again. In a monastic life, it's a monastery. Everybody has come to realize God. So you have a special sample. When you look at the general sample in the world, it's difficult to find it because lots of people are not interested in spiritual life. But in a monastery, most people are, all of them literally are interested. And among them, you find this interesting variation. Some seem to be very spiritual at the beginning and then slip. Some seem to be pretty ordinary at the beginning and then become extraordinary. I have seen that. And some seem to be extraordinary, very few, from the beginning till the end. I remember Swami Ranganathananda ji, who was the 13th president of our order, an extraordinary person. We always thought he was extraordinary because we saw him as the vice president of the order and the president of the order, but truly extraordinary, a great man, holy man and great man. But there were other monks, like old monks who belonged to his generation. They had seen him 60 years ago when he became a monk, 70 years ago when he became a monk. And one of them told me, a very senior monk, the Swami, who is now the head of our order, Ranganathanji, I have seen him when he was a brahmacharya, novice. And he was the same. He was the same. Of course, now he's greater in many ways, but he was extraordinary to begin with. I asked, so for example, the story is, he didn't study much. And then he became a monk, Swami Ranganathanji. He was from Kerala. He became a monk. He used to say that in the ashram where I was a novice, I was not very highly educated. So I would have the extra duty of, in addition to everything else, to wash the dishes after food, after everybody had eaten. And the other monks would go and study Vedanta scriptures with the Pandit who was visiting. And nobody asked me because they thought he won't understand. And he would sit and listen and memorize. I have seen his old notes. He didn't have money to buy books. He's just copied down entire books with a pencil in a notebook. You see the tremendous eagerness to learn. I asked a monk when I was a novice, a senior monk of ours under whom I studied. So I was reading about the life of this Swami Ranganathananda ji, who was the president by that time. How is it possible after a whole day of hard labor to spend your last waking hours studying abstruse philosophy, Vedanta, and I can hardly read Reader's Digest. I just want to fall asleep at the end of the day. So let alone Vedanta. And that monk, the senior monk who told me, he said, look, some people, they are born monks. They are not monks it's not the first life when they have been seeking God. They have already gone ahead in earlier lives. So what you see now is the result of spiritual practices in past lives. Then Mr. Chaudhary asks, after being told all this, he asks, so how can one see God? The Master says, not with these eyes. Because often you would see Sri Ramakrishna as if he's seeing with these eyes. But he points out, not with these eyes. Because he's clearly, if he was seeing with these eyes, others also would see it. He would go into ecstasies and then he's literally talking to God. And for him, God was the Divine Mother, Kali. And for him, Kali talked to him. Somebody said that if you talk to God, that's fine. In prayer, you're supposed to talk to God. But if God talks back to you, that's when you need to see your therapist. No wonder people thought he was crazy. Sri Ramakrishna, people thought he was crazy. He's talking to the Divine Mother. So Sri Ramakrishna points out, not with these eyes. God gives one divine eyes, only then can one behold him. God gave Arjuna divine eyes so that he may see his universal form. The 11th chapter, when Arjuna asks Sri Krishna, I believe everything that you have told me, that God exists and you are an incarnation of God, avatar, all that I understand. But I want to actually see for myself. Because I'm seeing you as a human being now. Can I see you in your divine form? So the 11th chapter is the most poetic and dramatic in the whole Bhagavad Gita. And Krishna says, yes, Divyam dadami te chakshu. I will give you divine eyes, the eyes of divine sight, by which you will behold me in my real nature. But what he saw didn't do him much good, Arjuna. Arjuna was scared out of his wits. He was terrified when he had that vision. It's called Vishwarupa Darshana, the vision of the universal form of God. The entire cosmos, all in one being. I mean, just imagine. We talk about stage fright. When in the animal kingdom, they say that if another animal is staring at an animal, it's a sign of aggression, right? In the park, if you stare at a dog continuously, either the dog, if it's a happy dog, it'll wag its tail and come up to you, or if it's an aggressive dog, it'll growl at you, or run away with its tail between its legs and slink away. So usually fight or flight. So direct staring at a person is aggression in the animal kingdom. Our brain reacts that way. But when you're speaking, stage fright, for example, is because of that. You have standing up to speak before an audience of maybe dozens or hundreds of people, and they're all staring at you. Now your brain interprets it as an attack. And so you freeze. They're all out to get me. They just want to listen to you. They just want to listen. They just want to hear what you're saying. But your brain doesn't know that. It's an animal brain. It reacts with, they're all staring at me. They say that the psychologists say that's the reason for stage fright. And then over time you get used to it and so on. But now my point is, it can be overwhelming. I mean, the largest audience that I have ever spoken to was one in Belur Math with 14,000 people. They are all looking at you. Now, the commentators explain what Arjuna saw in that vision of the universal form, Vishwarupa Darshan, the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the tremendous, extraordinary poetry in Sanskrit. What he saw was, we go through life and lifetimes experiencing this universe in slices. Right now we are experiencing it in a slice. Here is this room with a few people, and before this we were experiencing something else, and after this we'll see another slice of the world. And that's how we go through life. And then many lifetimes. But imagine if all of it coalesced into one instant of vision of the entire universe. All 7 billion, not 14,000 people, 7 billion human beings, and all the humans who ever lived in the past, all who will ever live in the future, and all non-human beings, animals, and if there are angels and deities and whatnot, and demons and all of that, all of them, all those billions and trillions of beings in one being, and then that being turns and looks at you. Arjuna says, every hair in my body is standing on its end. When I see your face of fire, your eyes blazing with the fire of creation. Those verses, it is like, Arjuna says, it's like 1,000 suns rising in the sky at once. One sun, you can't look at it. 1,000 suns rising at once to look upon your form. That's why Oppenheimer, when the first atom bomb explosion took place here, New Mexico, Oppenheimer chanted. He chanted this verse from the Bhagavad Gita. He was a Sanskrit scholar. He knew the Bhagavad Gita. He chanted this verse. I come, the destroyer of worlds. I come, time, the destroyer of worlds. In the skies with a light of 1,000 suns. That's what he felt like when he saw the first nuclear explosion on Earth. So that's what, yeah.
Hypothetical question, let's say. It has to do with the enlightened. So there is some of us who are, a few of us who are Yasiddham, ever perfected, and then others get it by Kripa.
And there are others who do a lot of spiritual practice, and they also finally get it by grace. When they get it, even they get it by grace.
Most of us are not there yet. We'll never be there. But let's say...
We will be. We will. Vedanta says all of us are going to be enlightened.
Okay, that's my question.
Yes.
And it's hypothetical. I thought it is, because let's say we all get enlightened. What will happen to the world?
Don't worry. It was fine before we came, and it'll be fine after we are gone. But it's not that we are all going to get enlightened all at once and suddenly. And you are right. I mean, from a Vedantic perspective, the universe will come to an end when you're all enlightened. But then another universe will come into being. And we are free, but the flow of jivas is endless. So that's also hypothetical. Because from an Advaita perspective, there's only Brahman. You want a story, I can tell you a story. A grand story I can tell you, but still a story. Do you want the truth? The truth is Brahman is the only reality, and you are Brahman.
Yes. Regardless if one gets enlightened, Brahman is.
Yes.
No change.
No.
It doesn't matter if I get enlightened, actually, right?
Yes. From the ultimate perspective, from Brahman's perspective, in the real nature of things, it doesn't matter. Because in the real nature of things, Brahman alone exists. But it matters terribly to you. It's the most life and death question for you. Because otherwise, fact is, you must start from where you are. I must start from where I am. I cannot deny fear of death, disease. I am suffering. There is a lot of unhappiness in the world. And I am unfulfilled. Even if I am not suffering, I am at least unfulfilled. The existential angst is there. Whatever I get in this world is not enough. When will I be fulfilled? If I have these questions, the answer is enlightenment. But what you have said, from Brahman's perspective, what's the truth? Gaudapada says in the Mandukya Karika, he says, Na nirodho na cha utpatti. There is no end to the universe. What do you mean? Because there was no beginning to it at all. Nothing began. What will come to an end? But what about us who are in bondage? We are here in bondage. Na baddho. Nobody is in bondage. But what about the enlightened ones? Na muktaha. But there are those who want enlightenment. Na mumukshu, nobody wants enlightenment. But we are all practicing spiritual disciplines for, and he says, naja sadhaka, there's nobody practicing disciplines for enlightenment. What nonsense are you talking about? And Gaudapada says, Esha paramarthata. Nityesha, ityesha paramarthata. This is the ultimate truth, which is what you just said. But, big but is that as long as we are experiencing life as an individual, one must be very honest about. If you are not honest, nature will force you to be honest. Life will force you to be honest. It's good to know that. And it's good to know things are perfect. But until I realize that, I need to pursue enlightenment. It's the grandest project a human being can have, enlightenment. But it's still a human project. You're right that way.
So it's never a logical choice. It's an existential choice.
Yes. And logical also. Logic will follow. When you make up your mind that this is the existential choice, all logic will point to it then. I have mentioned this earlier also. Yeah, I'll come to you next. The Harvard philosophy professor, Parimal Patil, he asked this question in a slightly different form. He says, how many people are enlightened, Swami? Very few. You might think, oh, so they discuss enlightenment in Harvard? Yes, they do, in the philosophy department. Emerson Hall. Emerson himself was very influenced by Vedanta, So this professor asked me, how many people are enlightened? Very few. So if these chances of success are so minimal, infinitesimal, why would anybody come to this path at all? So I gave him 2 answers, and then he gave me a third. So I'll give you all these 3 answers quickly. 2 answers I gave him was, first of all, everybody will be enlightened. It's your real nature. Nobody can stop you from realizing that. Everybody may not become a multi-billionaire or a king or go be an astronaut and go to space, but everybody will be enlightened. Second, once you have come to this path, what else shall you do? It is so noble, so high, so beautiful. You will continue in this. There's nothing that matches it. So we will continue, and of course enlightenment is there forever. There's no failure here in this path. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, Arjuna says, suppose I don't get enlightenment in this life, so have I lost out on, I could have spent that time, partying, whatever. So have I lost out? He says that. Or what? Have I lost out on both? I didn't become enlightened, and I didn't enjoy life to the full because I was doing all this religion stuff. Then Krishna's answer is that in this path there is no loss. There is entire loss on all other paths. You earn money, it's gone when you die. You have a whole family and people around you, they are gone when you die. You do great things in this life, you are gone. They may persist or not, who knows. And people will forget very fast. The world forgets very fast. Vivekananda used to say, by the world forgotten and the world forgetting. What does a monk do? You leave everything, go away into the forest and mountains, the world forgets you so fast you'd be hurt. And you forget more slowly. By the world forgotten and the world forgetting. So, you continue on this path. Second is, this is a great path. What else will you do? And then the professor told me those are 2 good answers, but they are theoretical, a little theoretical. I'll give you a practical reason why people stick to the spiritual life. He himself said, he said that in this path, from day to day, the benefits that we get, no matter how far away enlightenment may seem, we are getting benefits already. It's not all or nothing. The peace I get, the meaning I get in life. Once you take to this spiritual path, you're never in a crisis of meaning anymore. That part is solved for you, which is a great thing, tremendous thing. The benefits that we get. Recently it was National Mental Health Week or something. Someone approached me for a documentary shoot on suicide prevention, removing the stigma on mental health problems and so on. I was invited by the American Psychiatry Association for a meeting with faith leaders. And that's a group which is very inimical to religion, or was. So in the discussions it came out something very interesting. And these are the most powerful people in the most powerful body of psychiatrists in the world. They guide American psychiatry. So one of them said, is it that we are coming down on the side of religion? We are endorsing what religion is saying? No. But what we are saying is that you cannot argue with the numbers. And he says, clearly data over decades has shown that people with mental health problems, those who have some deep commitment in religious life, in whatever form, they are more impervious to mental health problems, or if they do get mental health problems, they are more resilient than people who have no connection with religion or spirituality. So you see the benefits which keep coming in every way, physical, mental, in terms of internal fulfillment, in terms of being resilient to the challenges of life. So that's what Parimal Patil said. This is why we are in spiritual life. 3 answers. Yes.
You said, from the Advaita perspective, obviously everything is Brahman. So, but if you want a story, I'll give you a story.
Yeah.
So why the story? What is the purpose of the story?
Because you asked for a story. Because if you say, give me the truth, well, you are Brahman. That doesn't cut much ice with me. I want to know why this and why that other thing. Why itself is wrong. Because there is no causal link between the ultimate reality and the world of appearance. If you want to know why the villain behaved so badly with the hero in the movie, you're watching a movie on a screen, the screen can't answer that, because the screen is not responsible for the behavior of the villain. From the perspective of the screen, there is no villain, no hero. There's only the screen. You have to look for an answer within the movie. So you have to be in the story to ask a question, why?
But why not just continually bring the focus back to the screen?
Yes.
And why give this story, even if someone is asking for this?
Because
why not just turn this focus back?
Right, because the story will turn the focus back on the screen. That's what you're doing. So the story is a skillful means. Because there are many people, who will just look back at you blankly if you tell them that, oh, you are the clear light of the void. That's the answer to your question. Why am I suffering so? To Mr. Chaudhary says, my wife died and I'm so miserable. But don't be miserable, you're a clear light of the void. But it won't work for most people. Some people want a devotional answer, some want a philosophical answer. All of them are answers, they are stories. And the truth is beyond all of them. But some stories are helpful. They provide some solace and some door to the reality. Just one more point. This is, some man thinks I practiced a little prayer and austerity and so I've gained a victory over others. No. There is one monk who was in the Himalayas who wrote a letter to the Holy Mother, Ma Sharada, and letters used to be read out to her. So this monk is writing that, ask the mother, I have been practicing in the Himalayas, in Rishikesh, in the foothills of the Himalayas. I have been practicing meditation and japa for such a long time. When will God have His grace? When will Thakur give me a vision? And the mother was annoyed. She said right back to him that, do you think that God is a sack of potatoes you can purchase for a price at the village market? I have done this much of practice, now God should show Himself to me or herself to me. No. God will reveal God will reveal Himself or herself to you when it is time, in God's good time. And then she adds, He is a sadhu. What else will he do if he does not practice meditation and japa? Don't think you're doing a favor to God by being spiritual. All right. And then, what a stunning statement. He is telling whom? Keep in mind, this man who is holding a senior position in the government, a very learned man. He already pointed out 3 or 4 university degrees, and he's a powerful man. And he obviously has some kind of feeling that, I've studied so much and I'm important and I'm learned. And Sri Ramakrishna's example is stunning. He says, don't think in that way. Victory and defeat, whether one comes out of this life enlightened or not, they are entirely in God's hands. And those are good hands. They are entirely in God's hands. And then he says, I have seen a prostitute dying in the Ganges and retaining consciousness to the very end. That means in a very high elevated state of mind she passed away. So what will you say to that? Because it doesn't match with all our calculations. Here is a person who is leading a holy life and very spiritual and done a lot of spiritual practice and doesn't attain God realization. And here's somebody people would condemn for being a prostitute and being immoral and probably did not do spiritual practice and passing away like a spiritual hero. How do you know? It's not our efforts. That's unfair. No, it's not unfair. As long as this is a dialogue for serious spiritual seekers. It takes for granted that we are all serious spiritual seekers. If somebody says, "Oh, this is not fair," then I won't practice spiritual disciplines. I'm dropping out of this whole race. It's not a race, and we are talking to people who are not going to drop out, who are committed spiritual seekers. This develops deep dependence on God. I am in the presence of God. I love God. I'm in the presence of God all the time, and that's deeply fulfilling to me. That going to that rich man, I don't want anything. Even the highest liberation, moksha, that also, I want it, but only if it pleases you. With that attitude approach God, that's spiritually actually much more beneficial than that extreme eagerness. I'll end with a Zen story, since we have a Zen practitioner here. There was this young man who went to a Zen master and said, so if I follow your instructions, how long is it going to take me to attain, satori, that is bodhi, enlightenment? And the master said, well, if you work hard and if you're sincere, 10 years. And then the young man was aghast. And he said, 10 years? Suppose I work twice as hard, I do more meditation and I work twice as hard, then how long? And the master said, 20 years. That very attitude is going to push you a bit back 10 more years. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.